Hi, my name is Jim and I was retired. Whether you're planning for retirement or in retirement, a lot of focus goes on your investment portfolio and your retirement income. But that's only one side of the ledger. Are you paying attention to your expenses too? In this video, I'm going to show you ways you can go about tracking your expenses. I'll admit it, when I was retired 5 years ago, I was not tracking my expenses. Suddenly, I was retired with not a clear picture of where the expenses were in my budget. I had been using Quicken for decades, mostly to balance my checkbook. But I'd grown lazy. Most of the credit card bills were marked miscellaneous. As I mentioned in my first video, in 2015, the year I was retired, miscellaneous made up 35% of my expenses. That is no way to run a budget. I had to go back and categorize all of those expenses to try to capture where I was spending my money. This is an example of how you do that in Quicken with splitting the transactions into several different categories. And again, it's a time-consuming process to go through and edit each of those miscellaneous transactions into these subcategories. And a few years ago, I realized it's a lot easier just to go ahead and link your credit card to Quicken so that every transaction as it happens gets the right category. And then your payment of the credit card bill is simply a transfer from your checking account to your credit card account. But in that way, you can track spending over time with the right categories. Now, of course, I spend on the credit card and I pay it off each month. You will have to watch it because sometimes Quicken or your credit card company will change categories on you. There are hundreds and hundreds of categories you could use in Quicken, but you want to lock down on a set few. For instance, in my budget, dining and groceries are two separate categories. Groceries are the food in our house, and dining is dining out. One is essential and one is discretionary. But somehow the credit card companies or the Quicken decided to lump everything in food and dining. So you have to recategorize that transaction. Quicken fortunately remembers your preferred categories. So each time it sees that merchant, it uses that category. But if you dine out, you'll need to do that with every restaurant you visit. But what I usually do is wait for the month-to-month analysis. I see if there's anything categorized food and dining, and I go in and edit the transactions then. So, after 5 years plus of retirement, what are the major categories of expenditures in my retirement budget? Well, because of that sloppy bookkeeping with miscellaneous in the first couple years, miscellaneous adds up to 11.5% of my total 5-year spending. That's on par with groceries. Medical expenses added up to about 15.8%, and that reflects spending pre-Medicare on COBRA and ACA plans out of our own pocket. As you know from prior videos, we paid off our mortgage long time ago. Otherwise, our largest spending category would be even larger. Even without mortgage payments, if you add up home, utilities, and property tax, those three categories add up to about 17% of the total 5 years of spending. Now, in the last 12 months, I've gotten a lot better on that miscellaneous. You see, miscellaneous is still down to 4.4% now. Some things truly are miscellaneous, and that's okay if that's the category. And as you can see on this 1-year chart, groceries and medical are roughly about 15% each. And if you add up the home-related expenses, you're close to 24% for home, utilities, and property tax. And that reflects some decisions we made in this past year to do some home improvement and some COVID projects in our backyard. So in both the 5-year and the 1-year total, home costs, medical costs, and groceries, your food at home, were the 3 largest categories in our budgets. Another way to divide up your budget is to take a look at all the categories, in my case around 30 categories that I use in Quicken, and divide them up into essential and discretionary spending. And as you can tell by this 1-year total here, 71% of my spending in the last year was essential, and only about 30%, 29%, was discretionary spending. Now that generally reflects COVID and less dining and travel in my last year of spending. Let's jump back up to the 5-year totals of essential and discretionary and see what they look like. Over the total 5 years of spending, you can see that essential was about 62% and discretionary was 38% of my spending. Now, one way of using essential and discretionary is to line up guaranteed income to pay your essentials. I don't have a big enough pension to do that, and I'm waiting till 70 for Social Security. So I look at total spending. It's nice to know at least I have some room to cut back with discretionary, but my budget and my retirement withdrawal strategies look at total spending. Now, I use Quicken, but you could use another platform. One alternative could be Personal Capital. If you link your checking accounts and your credit card accounts into Personal Capital, they have a budgeting tool that will track your spending. But again, you need to make the investment of time to keep the categories straight. For instance, I only have my checking account in Personal Capital, and you can see they lump all checks together into a category called checks. That's another euphemism for miscellaneous, isn't it? Personal Capital could be a choice if you don't want to spend money on Quicken. As I noted in my last video too, Personal Capital offers these free online tools, but you have to recognize this is a lead generation program for their wealth management services. Those are optional. You need to sign up for them and pay up to 0.89% for their investment advice. You don't need to do so. Now, there are other alternatives that you could use beyond Quicken and Personal Capital. Mint from Intuit, the makers of TurboTax, is another example. It's an online tool, but it is advertising supported. It's free. You'll just have to put up with the ads as you use it. And another one is a fee-based program called You Need a Budget, YNAB. And a lot of people swear by that. But I'm already spending about $55 for an annual subscription to Quicken Deluxe. So I don't want to spend another $84 a year on that YNAB application too. But it might be the choice for you. I'm going to put a link to all of these alternatives below, and you can check them out for yourself. Here are some tips that you can use no matter what application you're using, or whether you're using a spreadsheet or a paper ledger. Follow these guidelines to help track your expenses. Number 1, use a consistent list of categories so that you can track expenses over time. Don't let them change the categories on you without you realizing it. Number 2, think about lumping those categories into essential and discretionary spending. And if you've got guaranteed income that meets your essential spending, more power to you. Consider linking your credit cards to these spending applications so that you can track your expenses automatically. But make sure you pay the credit card off at the end of each month. Now, we pay all the bills from one checking account, and I know others advocate different accounts for different kinds of spending. And if you're a married couple, the division is, do you have a joint checking account or separate checking accounts? We've kept separate accounts over our marriage, and it's worked out better for us. And finally, look at the monthly averages of your spending as you track it to build a budget that you can stick to. I've developed a system of downloading the data from Quicken into my own spreadsheet that tracks the moving average of those spending categories over time. And I found that works a little bit better than the budgeting tool directly in Quicken. I'll conclude with my standard warning. I am not a financial professional. I have no initials after my name. So take this as entertaining ideas from one educated consumer to another. Always do your own due diligence and seek out a professional if you need to. Oh, and please like and subscribe down below. The more likes I get, the higher this will be in YouTube's search results. Thanks. See you next time.